Welcome back to FURYCAST. But first, make sure you comment on this video, let it play to the end, like, subscribe, and yes, please smash that bell. And don't forget to sign up to the mailing list for my new graphic novel, illustrated by the world famous Ebi Canales. Sign up now. The link is in the description. My guest on today's show is a BJJ black belt under the world famous Eric Paulson. I had the good pleasure to meet him at Eric Paulson CSW Coaches Camp in beautiful Fullerton, California recently. And when I first met this guy, and despite looking like Gaston from Beauty and the Beast, there was a depth, there was a earnestness, and there was a gentle warrior spirit about this guy. And now for my interview with Brighton, Michigan's own BJJ black belt, Mr. Craig Funk. People who do martial arts don't do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu might not understand what a monumental task that is to get a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But we're going to get into that. But first, there it is, the covet, the precious.
Yes, I got it. It's mine.
The precious black belt. I'm almost there. And but first, take me back to how you grew up and your path that led you to being a professional martial artist.
When I got into martial arts, like I didn't formally start training till I was about 14, but I was little, man. I was into this show. It was called The Cowboys of Mumesa. And it was this, I don't know, it's not a lot of people heard of it. I was a little kid, so I'm like 33, and it was like these three like super like jacked, they were like bulls, but they had like the human body, and they were like fight evil, and they were really into that. So I was always into anything that was like skill related, like Pokemon, Warhammer 40K. I was into it, man. And I was really like not in shape kid. And I got bullied really, really bad. And we're like, someone borrowed like $20 from me, borrowed, and then like they gave it back. And then right after they gave it to me, they're like, give me that back. And I'd be like, no, and they're like, well, I'll beat your ass. So I would just give it to them because I was scared. So I got bullied like really, really bad. And until I decided I'm going to take a jiu-jitsu class. And the reason I picked jiu-jitsu was because I started with like the Jeet Kune Do, like Bruce Lee books, because everybody knew who Bruce Lee was. And I was like reading all the, like, not the tell, it was like the technique books, like where they were showing you like, but I wasn't practicing anything.
Yeah, those books he put out, there were like Bruce Lee's fighting method, and it would be like a green book with just this graphic image of him. Those are the most best graphically designed books I've ever seen, because they just pop off the shelf.
They're phenomenal. If I could find those, I'll be really happy. I'd like to go back and see it. And that's when I realized, like, I always wanted to be on my feet. Like, if I was going to be learning, like, to protect myself, I should probably stay up. But then what happened was I got introduced to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I realized, like, oh, you don't have to be big or strong to do this. So I started Jiu-Jitsu when I was 14 years old, and I never stopped training. I'm 33.
I'm really interested in this TV show, The Cowboys of what?
Look it up. It's called The Cowboys of Mumesa.
Now, that was a show or a cartoon?
It was a cartoon. It was
okay.
Yeah.
I must have missed this. This must have been early 2000s or what?
Bro, this was like in the 90s.
90s?
Yeah.
Man. Because what I've noticed what happened with the martial arts is in the 70s, the first real explosion was Bruce Lee, because Bruce Lee brought it to film, and people were really inspired by the magnanimous nature of Bruce. You know, he was just bigger than life entity on the screen. My generation, what really blew it up a second time was the Karate Kid. When that movie came out, you know, there was Shotokan schools, or, you know, maybe Taekwondo schools, but a lot of them were like small people's backyards. And then all of a sudden it went to the strip malls. Like after the Karate Kid, it was like everybody was training karate, Tang Soo Do, Taekwondo, whatever happened. The third was the first UFC, when Hoist Gracie went into that octagon and beat everybody. That really, once again, drove people into the martial arts, but also kind of shined a light on, hey, kicking and punching is great, but if you can't protect your neck and I get you on the ground, you can't protect your arm,
You can't fight. Like if you're not training at all, what are you doing? Like train it all. Like you said, like if you're just doing one piece, you got to do the other.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so I interview a lot of people that are inspired by the Power Rangers. Were you into that at all?
Dude, I was the biggest fan of the Red Ranger. Dude, I still have all my stuff. I took good care of all my toys. So 100%. I actually, you just rekindled that. Power Rangers 100%. That was 100% influence on what I'm doing today. I never even realized that.
So you're inspired by pop culture and Bruce Lee, which I mean, honestly, man, Bruce Lee was like the biggest pop culture phenomenon. Maybe Elvis and Michael Jackson are like on his par, maybe. I don't know who else is.
You know, I've never seen any of his movies.
Bruce Lee, you've never seen Enter the
Dude,
Dragon?
I know I am a like I'm still like that. Like when everyone's like, oh, the new John Wick, like I've just never, it's weird. Like even like it's for some reason I don't. I was just I looked up martial arts. I went to the martial arts. Like we didn't really have I was a backwoods boy too, man. I didn't have
No, man,
so
you got to start watching the Bruce Lee stuff because it's
I
just
will, man. I'll watch them all, man. I've only
he's just
watched
such a.
Dragon. I watched Dragon, a Bruce Lee story. That's the one I did watch. And but I like didn't see that till I was adult.
I've watched that. I watched that back when it came out. That I've watched it recently, because I have a history with JKD as well, and it's amazing how little JKD is in that movie. There's hardly like at the end when he's a silhouette and he's
Yes,
doing some stuff. I'm like, okay, that looks like JKD, but nothing in the movie he does resembles Jeet Kune Do at all. But what age were you when you first walked into a jiu-jitsu school?
I was at that time like formally going into an actual school. I was 15 years old.
You say formally, were you doing like you were just doing the Bruce Lee stuff at your house, looking at the books before that?
Dude, so I've had a job since I was 12, so I've always like paid for my own stuff. And my parents said that they're like, you gotta like pay your own way if you want to do stuff. That's how life was. So I was like, all right, cool. And I didn't have the money yet. So I wasn't paying. I was training with this guy that knew like he had like 3 months of jujitsu. And here, let me tell you what happened. I was getting bullied and I was practicing jujitsu like a little bit, like learning a few moves, but I wasn't learning anything. I was just kind of hanging out watching. And then the guy that like I was doing jujitsu with, he moved. And I was like, man, I should probably start doing this myself because I was getting bullied. So then at 15, I formally walked into a jujitsu school. So I was always like reading martial arts books, but I like formally like got into like bought a gi and my white belt. It's I got up on the wall, so I got all my belts up here. But that's when I started. Was 15 when I walked into a jiu-jitsu school, Warrior Way, here in Michigan. They've started like everybody. They were like one of the first. Them and a place called East West. So you got to pick which one you went to, and I went to the closer, which was 45 minutes away, and I was 15. So,
Dude, you're so lucky, man, because after that first UFC in '93, everybody went looking for jujitsu unless you were on the West Coast and maybe I think maybe Henzo was on the East Coast. There was no jujitsu. So that's actually how I got into judo, because it was like, okay, well then this looks kind of similar, But what was that experience like first walking to your first Brazilian jiu-jitsu class? Because you started how many years ago?
17.
17 years ago. Okay, so I'll probably start a little bit before you, probably like 18 years ago, and it was
Okay.
a different animal. My experience with jujitsu, like you train for a year and a half, get a blue belt. It didn't mean you knew anything. It just meant you were tough, you know.
Right.
And but what was your experience like?
I I went in and I was like I said, I was getting bullied. So the instructor was like really cool with me and like he was treating me with kid hands and he was really friendly. His name was Brandon. And he showed me what the closed guard was. He showed me a Kimura and a rear naked choke. And then I like did the class and like did the shrimps and stuff. And I remember I went home that night and I was like, I felt so empowered, but I knew I didn't know anything. But what happened was my dad was a wrestler. He was into like the catch stuff. And I never like wanted to learn anything. Like I thought wrestling was like, oh, so my dad actually said, he goes, what are you doing? I go, I want to do jujitsu. And he goes, Craig, you don't need to do a Chinese cooking class. That's what he said to me. And I was like, Dad, it's not like that. It's like wrestling. He's like, oh, just wrestle. And I'm like, fuck, man. So I came home. My dad shot a double on me. I wrapped my guard around him. I grabbed his wrist and I grabbed the Kimura, but I couldn't finish it because he's a concrete cutter. He was too strong. So
Kimura
I
from the
just held
bottom.
on. Yeah. So
Kimura
I
from,
just held on. But it was like the first time in my life, like this guy like didn't beat me up, like because he would just like he knew how to wrestle and I didn't. I was a little fat kid. And dude, I held on. I was like, oh, this works. Oh, and I never missed. I was actually a white belt. I didn't get it till I was like almost 22. So I was 20. I was training from 15 till 21, 6 days a week, 2 hours a day. And I was a white belt for that for so however long that was. I didn't have like a formal, I couldn't make it all the time because I was young. I didn't have a driver's license and I had to get a car. So I trained at home mostly. But when I would go roll, and like go train, I would like write down everything I did wrong. So all day in school, I'd be writing down like what submissions I couldn't get out of or like what position. I was obsessed from white belt. So I was a white belt for like 6 years.
Yeah. How'd you train at home doing jujitsu, which you need a partner to do jujitsu?
You do. So the thing that I realized that it was not really based on moves, it was based on movement. So all the stuff that they would like do for warm-ups, I would do it. But you're right, you needed a partner. I still have it to this day. It's in my home gym. It's a camouflage heavy bag by Everlast. And I would put that like between my legs and like try like the scissor sweep. So like there was no like I didn't have grappling dummy or anything. So I literally had this punching bag and I would read books and I would practice the moves by myself like I was shadow boxing, but it was like shadow grappling. And I didn't have anything like any other interest. I'm an Eagle Scout, so I was into camping. I love being outside, but I love martial arts, and that's how I practice at home. And I'd get to go train like once a week, maybe twice, maybe skip school and go out. You know what I'm saying? So I was just obsessed with jujitsu. That was my. I realized it worked. That's what it was. Like all the other stuff, I'm like this works. So I just fell in love early with it.
And so 6 years to blue belt. What was that? Why was that?
I was consistent. I didn't really. So let me tell you, I'm not like a little weak guy, I'm like 200 pounds, but I was always lifting kettlebells and, really strong and into. So what happened was I took an MMA fight before I like really committed myself to jiu-jitsu, believe it or not. And all these things kept happening like in between. So when I finally got to I finally found an instructor that had like a set program. Like you said, you go there, you show up, they toss you a blue belt. The guy that I got my blue belt from, his name is Professor Marcio Corlata, and he's in San Diego, and he's just terrific. He gave Fabricio Verdum his black belt, and so he's phenomenal. And that's actually where, like the red sash on my blue belt is actually instructor sash. So I took an instructor program, and he has something called a progressive system. So like they didn't just like hand him out; he actually had like a system. So when I finally got like hyper focused and just instead of like just be stronger and more explosive, I actually learned jujitsu. So it was, dude, I was terrible. Like everyone knows me as like a great grappler now. I was horrible. I trained for a year and a half, 2 hours a day, never submitted a single person for a year and a half. Imagine training 6 days a week for a year and a half as a white belt and never submitting anybody and being the worst guy in the gym. That's why, like, I always said, like, I can breathe underwater. I'm not a lion. I'm a cockroach. Like, I won't quit. That's the thing about me. I won't quit. It doesn't matter if Professor Eric would have said, hey, we're starting you back at purple belt instead of giving you black belt. I'd be like, right on, coach. I don't care. I really don't, because it doesn't, I just love it. Like it wouldn't, yeah. So I was just addicted to it. They could restart me a white belt right now and I'll kill everybody at Naga. But it's like but that's what it was. Like I found love in it. So it didn't matter what color my belt was. If it was no-gi, it didn't matter. As long as I could go train, that's what made my heart happy. So I didn't have structure. And when I finally found that structure, that's when I took off.
So you're training with the guys in Michigan,
Yes.
and then you went to San Diego to train and get your blue belt. Is that how that worked?
So he actually at the time lived in Brazil. So he would come and do seminars like
In
twice a year.
Michigan.
Yes.
Mhm.
And that's I got promoted. It was a Thursday. And then when everyone went out to eat to celebrate, I was the only guy. No, with one of my buddies, we had to stay behind and clean black mold. And we were like scrubbing and cleaning till like 2:30 at the one of the like it was like a job I had to do. So like it was like I couldn't even celebrate. I had to go right back into work. And then I got like 3 hours of sleep. And I was right back teaching fitness classes the next morning too. So it was like
So then what was that journey to purple like? Blue to purple.
blue to purple was really cool. So I got each of my belts from a different instructor. And this is really interesting because the guy I got my purple belt from actually trained with Eric at one point and said, like, that's a great guy. So blue to purple was, it wasn't as long as white to blue. I think I was a blue belt for like 2 or 3 years. I competed a lot at blue belt, which I thought was good. I focused really on the catch wrestling, like wrestling more so. I met a guy named Freddie George when I was at the Arnold Classic, and he's the one that told me about CSW. So at blue belt is when I had my catch wrestling awakening to blend. And that's when research and development. I bought the CSW instructionals, and I started just doing what Paulson was doing on his instructionals, no gi, I would do wearing a gi. So that's what got me to the purple belt. Was learning from Ryan Fiorenzi and then learning from Eric Paulson digitally, I guess I would say, and blended those two. And I learned like good escapes. I got better on my feet. I advanced my guard, and I kind of formed my own pathways of doing things I liked, and that got me to that adult belt at purple belt.
The coveted purple belt. Did you get injured at purple? Because everybody says purple's the belt of getting injured.
Yeah,
First thing he says, yeah.
Now you got me thinking about, yeah, I got really beat up at purple belt, man. That was tough. I was a purple belt for like 2013 till 2018. So I was a purple belt for a while too. And my purple belt has a lot of miles on it. I almost turned white and it's all frayed. And I was training under a guy named Victor Torres, and Professor Victor Torres. He, again, an hour away. All my instructors are always a drive. And he was the one that got me to brown belt, and he really he pushed me to competing, and I got I really developed a good game at purple belt, which I think is huge. I call it the adult belt. That's when like you're still allowed to make mistakes, but it's like be an adult, like have your shit together before you go out. That's how I've always looked at the purple belt. That's like the big boy belt. That's when if you hit purple, you have to go to black. Like, why would you not? Like, you hit purple, you might as well finish it. So, and Chris Howder said that. He goes, blue belts quit because life happens, but purple belts quit because they get their hearts broke. And that happened to me. My wife straight up is like, she like, what do you need to talk about? I'm like, why? What are you talking about? She's like, I found your gi in the garbage can. You obviously want me to come talk to you. And I'm like, okay. Yeah, it's because you get frustrated. It's like you put all this in and you can't figure it out. I think that's normal. So if you're like a purple belt hearing this, or you're blue belt and you're going to turn, but like, remember this stuff. And if you guys know what I'm talking about, I got a really strong will. I was never going to quit, but man, I was on the fence. Like, I'm like, where do I go from here? I'm not getting anywhere. But I think that's what's cool about it. It's got something for everybody. So that's purple belt was really cool. I had a lot of great things happen in my life too. I became a father. I got married. And I really took my business to the next level as well.
Actually, let's talk about that a little bit. I want to finish this journey to black, and then we'll talk about the business. But so, the thing with purple is, like you said, it's an expert level belt. So if you go to compete, you're in the expert division because you're a purple belt. And honestly, if you were in any other martial karate, whatever, kung fu, you'd already be a black belt.
Yes, that's what I've always said. The Brazilian jiu-jitsu purple belt is like a black belt in another system.
It's exactly what it is. So but the thing with other martial arts are the lower belts aren't trying to kill you. In Brazilian jiu-jitsu, blue belts are trying to kill you.
Yes. Literally, like you have a target on you and they're like they want it. Yes.
Oh, and if you have a bad day, and I've been submitted as a purple belt by blue belts.
Dude, I got my brown belt, and literally the day after, a purple belt caught me in something. You know what I'm saying? It was like, it happens. Like, you can't take your ball and go home. Like, it happens. I did a live match with Nicky Rod, and that was humbling. We went like 7.5 minutes, and like, I thought I had good cardio. That boy's got good cardio, but wow, that's what I mean. Like, he's a purple belt. And but it doesn't matter. Like you said, everyone's got their thing, but that is that is part of it, is trying to prevent that from happening. That's what I think is good about the purple belt. Like, you take on that instructor role as well, of trying to help the white belts and help the blue belts, and they have a lot in common because they just came from that. Like, the black belt, I'm so far removed from like being a white belt, but I never forgot my journey. Like, I don't forget where I come from, but that's why I've always said that if you just know like one more thing than the other person, you can help them if you're willing to learn. You know what I'm saying? That's how I've always looked at it.
Now you go in, and a black belt will give you his time and roll with you as a white belt first day. That would never happen.
Never. Oh my God. Or the brown belts. It's like,
no. So like, I was lucky and befriended a purple belt who kind of took me under his wing. So everybody kind of had this one high blue or purple. If you were a white belt, there was like little cliques in the, of people that trained together, hung out together. And but you weren't getting the black belt would come into class and teach the class, um, and then maybe sit on a medicine ball while you rolled and watched everybody. You know what I mean? But so it's a completely different animal now. I mean, that's what it was like for you as well.
So the guys where I trained were pretty cool. They would get down. Like if you asked them, which I wouldn't, to me, I didn't know if it was disrespectful. So I just never asked. I didn't want to step on toes, but the guys that I look back to, they would have been down for it, but I know that it never, like they weren't rolling on the regular at the white belts that I remember. Maybe that's not 100% correct because it was a long time ago, but yes, I remember it was a big deal for me to get to grapple with a purple belt. Like that was like as a white belt, like that was a big deal. Like it was almost like an honor. So yes, it was kind of like that. I remember the first time I rolled with a black belt. Like it was probably my instructor when I got my blue belt. Before that, I don't think I ever. Yeah, you're right. That's wow. Things have really changed because I roll with people their first day and like teach them how to do everything.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I saw like somebody did like a TikTok video, and it started with Jiu-Jitsu today, and the instructor goes up to a white belt, ties his belt, dusts off his shoulders, hugs him, and then it switches to Jiu-Jitsu 20 years ago, and he goes up to the white belt, just throws him down, submits him, gets up, kicks him, he looks at him, spits on it. You know what I mean? It was like a completely different entity, which was for me was what I was looking for at that time. I'd come from Taekwondo, and I'd come from Judo, and I'd come from these traditional martial arts. They were very big on ceremony, but I was really in the Bruce Lee method. I was looking for something that maybe abandoned all that in the pursuit of absolute truth. You know what I mean? That's not to say that I don't, I still value my this is my Taekwondo black belt,
Of
right
course,
there, and
of course.
all my time spent in judo and JKD, like I value all of it. But so what was your journey from brown to black like?
It was very interesting because that's when COVID hit. That's when the big thing went around, and I remember I was training. I got my brown belt in 2018, and then 2021 is when I got my black belt from Coach Eric. So in that time, it was I don't like I've never told this story publicly ever. The During 2020, this guy, I don't know what he was on. He smelled like alcohol and he was on some type of drug. It was in my neighborhood, and I like my houses are pretty far apart, but I heard screaming. So I had to run down, and there was a man that had a shovel in his hands, and he was like bludgeoning this older couple that was in the house. They were my neighbors, and I come to find out it was a family member of theirs that during the lockdowns, people got nuts. And I remember I did like a 200-yard sprint and handled it. It's jiu-jitsu works. We'll just say that. And I helped cuff him and everything, but that's what it was. Like for me, I knew I was on the right path because I didn't get into jiu-jitsu. I didn't get into martial arts to compete. Like I don't even care about that. I think it's the highest level of a proving ground, but I was a bouncer for 10 years. I can tell you what works and what doesn't. I can tell you if someone's on drugs, what they're going to feel versus what they're not going to feel. I work with dogs, and I can tell you that's a whole different level of aggression. If you're a martial artist and you're doing this for self-defense, I always say like during that time is when everything developed. Like that's when I started training my dog for personal protection work. That's when I became a CPL instructor. That's when I kind of became like the blend. So brown belt it was a polishing up fact. That's when I like really learned how to teach. I came up with these curriculums for myself as well. I got in the best shape of my life. Like, dude, I felt phenomenal. So brown belt was a great awakening. It wasn't like, oh, I can coast into black belt. I actually turned that volume up. It was like, you're fucking brown belt. You better be able to back it up, man. That's huge, and that's how I've always looked at it. Like I do run a place. I don't know who's going to walk in here. I don't know who's going to come in and out. You know what I'm saying? So I'm always trying to be ready. And that's what I learned at brown belt was like, you're right. COVID shut down everything, and it knocked the wind out of my sails too. We were about to have our actually first record breaking month ever that would have like put everything else to shame. And it was like, boom, that Monday, like Thursday, we're like, man, we're going to kill it at the end of this month. And then Monday was when everything got said. And I remember though, during that time, it's a lot of stress when you train every single day. And now you're a brown belt and you want to get your black belt. And now this is in the way. And nobody had any answers. And on the TV, they're like, if you go outside, your eyes will pop. It's like, fuck, man. Like, so nobody knew what was going on. And it was crazy. So that was for me a grave awakening time of a belt to go from brown to black. And it was a total focus period where I kind of went to that next level.
Now, in that time, how did you end up training under Eric Paulson?
So I became, that's when I jumped to his affiliation, and I did it strictly out of a business decision. And I really, well, that's how I met you at Coach Development Camp. That's why I get to connect with people from all over, literally
Yeah,
the world. Am I right? You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
that's what I mean. I met Chris from England. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so I'm meeting people from all over the planet. And man, I have a motion master. I have a grappling dummy with arms, and I got at the time he was 13, and I'm like, let's go, man. We're going to train. My daughter's into it too. So I watch instructionals with her. Like, I'll buy like an instructional on BJJ Fanatics, and she's at the time she was 3, and she'll just sit there quietly and watch everything with me. So I'm obsessed. Like, that's what I do. I'm like, Saturday night, if you wonder what I'm up to, I'm probably watching instructional about something. I just like knowledge, and I like to learn. So like I said, I've gone to many of Eric's seminars, and that was like the big thing though, is watching his material and then practice, try to mimic those movements. And I just stayed in the best shape as possible. So those are the two things. Like his Vale Tudo conditioning instructional, it's older, but it's gold. Like, if you just do that, or his combat athletics, I did some of the routines from that this morning, like calisthenics wise. So I was always I go to his website, as being a part of his affiliation. And if not, you can subscribe to it. Like, anybody can do it. There is stuff on there to keep you busy literally for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
That's only a fraction of what that man knows. So
Yeah.
that's how, I stay relevant, and I try to pressure test everything with previous knowledge of knowing what I'm moving towards with my goal.
So you had been to some seminars with Eric Paulson beforehand, and that's how you got acquainted with him and his style of teaching and his methodology and all that. You just decided, hey, this is the guy.
It worked, dude. I like the guys that I couldn't beat. I would watch something on YouTube, and I would go to training that night, and it would just work. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just, I'm like, dude, everything, it's everyone says this at my place. They always say these words. I quote, I never really got it until I started watching Eric stuff. That's what everybody tells me. They're like, I watched him and I went, got it. That's when they go from not good to good, or from good to great, or from great to legendary. He has something to offer everybody at every level.
And so now tell me about getting your black belt. What was that day? What was that?
I cried.
Like,
it's
I would never cry when I received a belt. You understand me? I'm just
yes,
kidding.
Sir.
You remember when I got my brown belt? You were there.
Well, I actually didn't know I was gonna get it, and because we were hosting a seminar, and it was gi, and Eric and Tanya came in, and I remember he awarded me with my coach level 1 for CSW, and I like, it's surreal. Like, I actually never really even thought about it till right now. He said, next thing is take off your belt, Craig. And I remember thinking, like, wait, what? And then when I looked up and I saw that red sash like snapped, like he had it rolled up and he threw it out and like snapped it back, and I saw that black belt, and like I just like I crumpled. Like, it was just like, oh my, like, I've been doing this since I was 14. Like, and I just got there. Like, it was surreal. And then to look down and not just see a black belt on you, but you look up and you just see like this person, this legend, not just his status, but like the things that he's done for you. And my whole family was there. My wife was there, my kids, my friends, my mom and dad. Like, it's the best day, man. Like, I've never been good at anything. Like, everyone sees me as like this like stud. Everyone's like, he's like Gaston from Beauty and the Beast. Like, no, man, my spirit animal, where did I come from, was this chubby little boy that got bullied horrendously and wasn't confident enough to do anything. And now I live a life of freedom, because when you're afraid, you can never really be free, and that's why I call my place the Freedom Academy. You know what I'm saying? Like, it comes from your heart. And that's why, like, even though like this is just, it's fabric, it's what went into it. You know what I'm saying? Like, the fact that like this is my thing, man. Like, I'm so proud of it. I'm an Eagle Scout. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of being a husband. I'm proud of being a dad. But man, like, this is something that was outside of that. Like, anybody can go sign a marriage license. I'm proud to be married, proud to be a dad. But dude, this is something that money This can't, like, you can't buy one of these. Like, you can go on the internet, but it's like literally the blood, sweat, and tears. Like, I broke my back. I fought MMA. I was a bouncer for 10 years. I did all kinds of tactical training. Now I do CPL classes. Now I'm training dogs. And to me, it was all part of it. And that's what Eric Paulson always installed in me, was the Jeet Kune Do mindset. Take things that work for you and your goal, learn it all, take what's useful, disregard that was not, and blend it to you, and then pass it to others. And that's, man, it was the best day of my life. I had all my friends, David Gunn, the singer from King 810, he was there. And then, like, we had this big party. It wasn't even planned, dude. Like, it wasn't like, oh, we had a cake, or like, no, like, I didn't know I was getting it. So then that night, the coolest picture I have is not me wearing my belt. It's every person that I was training at that time. Their shoes were all in my mudroom in the foyer of my house, just like a sea of these shoes. And everyone that I love was in my basement partying and watching the UFC and eating pizza. And when you work so hard for something and you dedicate your whole life to it, and you get it, and it's like, for 16 years I was chasing that belt. I never was a belt chaser, but I did want to be a black belt. I had a goal. You got to have the goal. But then, like I said, this only covers about an inch of your ass. You got to cover the rest.
And so tell me a little bit about Freedom Academy, man. You started that at purple belt, and
I actually started at blue belt.
I love it.
Yeah.
I know people nowadays are like, no, you can't do that. Well, it depends on when you did it, and it also depends on, like, I'm from Houston, a big city, right? A lot of people don't realize, like, a lot of the country is these small little communities that don't have access, to a black belt. The black belt is 2 hours away, 3 hours away. So you have somebody who's done the trips, to get a blue belt, who's more than willing to share his information, whether it's in a garage or he rents a little bitty space. I'm all for it, because I came up in a time where blue belt was your main instructor. Like, maybe there was a black belt academy, but a blue belt was a guy who showed you the thing. So tell me, what was that like and why you started it at blue belt?
We weren't doing promotions. So everyone that was a black belt that gave me a hard time, my response was, well, I can teach them how to shrimp. I can teach them how to bridge, or I can do escapes. Like, I was a blue belt and I did an instructor course. And that's when I realized too, there's guys I know that are really good competitors and black belts, and like, they can't teach. Like, they don't know how to, like, connect with people emotionally. They don't know how to, like, they just expect, like, oh, just do this thing. Like, they don't actually understand the system. And not that I'm great, but I've made a lot of really accomplished fighters, and a lot of women I've teach, like, self-defense too. Unfortunately, the ones that were attacked have come out pretty unscathed. Like, one girl, I showed her one day in passing. She was a waitress I worked with at the bar. I'm like, hey, if someone grabs you, just do like this little thing with your wrist. That next day, this dude grabbed her wrist and tried to pull her into a car, and she got out. So I was like, okay, so that's so to answer, I was a blue belt. We ran it as a club. There was no promotions. No one got promoted, and then if we competed, we went as a team. So I started a blue belt, and I opened up an account so I can order gis, and I didn't belt anybody. I just gave them a white belt. So that's how we did it. But I agree with you. You can still get them to where you are. Like, that's like saying, like, hey, you shouldn't be teaching anybody until what am I doing this whole time? Like, now, if that's what your goal is, get to black belt, I would say, because you don't ever stop moving towards that. Never think you're the be all end all. That being said, don't be afraid to teach. Don't be afraid to show people stuff. There's nothing wrong with that. And the term freedom means to move without hindrance or restraint. So I'm the kind of person where if there was like a no touch knockout guy that opened up a place literally down the mile from me, I wouldn't even care. I don't care. Like, you can move in like a huge franchise name next door to me, and they can send emails like poaching my people. I don't care. Like, I really don't. Like, I live in my own world. So I've been asked before, what do you do with your competitors? You can't compete with me. And I mean that in the most respectful way possible. It's exhausting being me. Good luck. That being said, I don't compete. I create. So if you tell me, like, hey, they're mimicking everything you're doing, like, I don't care. If you tell me they're doing the opposite, I don't care. I believe in freedom. I believe as long as you're not hurting other people, you can go do whatever you want. If you got a black belt that opens up an academy like right next door to you, it shouldn't affect what you're doing. Like that would not, you know what I'm saying? Like, and that black belt shouldn't care if you weren't one teaching. Like if you, it's just, I've always been like that. So I started at blue, but I was an MMA fighter when I was 19. So I had taken an MMA fight before I was ever even a blue belt. And I was like anti-jiu-jitsu. I wanted to just like smash and be a monster. And then I was like, I really like jiu-jitsu. So I started at blue belt, and I was actually a fitness trainer. So I was certified kettlebells, TRX, Bulgarian bags. I was into all that and functional strength training. So I worked with fighters for their conditioning. And then on the side, 2 days a week, we'd roll. Like we'd do basics and we'd roll. And then when I got my purple belt, I took more of a seriousness to it. And that's when I really took my business as a business. It was no longer, oh yeah, we're going to be closed this day, but this guy, like, no, like I go, I'm going to do this, man. I read the book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I listened to this thing called The Strangest Secret by Earl Nightingale. And that was the thing that, see, most people read these books about business and then they go to read like the next book. Prayer is awesome. Meditation is great. But if you're not like taking action, you're not doing anything, you know? And I think it was my dad that said this to me. He's like, what are you going to do in life? I go, don't worry, Dad. I got a plan. I'm pretty sure he said, don't. He goes, well, Craig, an idiot with a plan can usually beat a genius without one. I'm like, yeah. You know? And he always told
Thanks,
me,
Dad.
yeah, thanks, Dad. He also told me, hey, if you're going to be dumb, you better be tough. And I'm like, all right, cool. And that was, dude, my whole life, I've slept on the floor of this office, you know, and like, that's what it is. Like, if everyone sees what I have now and they say it must be nice, dude, I've slept on the floor. I've gotten no sleep. I've worked 3 jobs at one time. You know, I worked at really, you know, dangerous security jobs to be able to pay the bills so I could teach jujitsu, you know, like, and then one day it became a full time, but you'll never be full time until you go full time. That's like what I learned about it. So I started as a fitness facility, did jujitsu, and now it's just strictly jujitsu. So I just have a martial arts academy. I do fitness stuff for personal training. I have an online academy that I'm actually currently uploading all of my kettlebells, landmine, TRX, body weight, everything. I'm just doing the workouts one last time and putting those there for anyone that wants them. The thing that we're the most successful with, it's not that like our jiu-jitsu is better than someone else's, because that's what a lot of people do. And I'm giving free advice right now. If you own a school and you're listening and you're taking like you're trying to like sell jiu-jitsu, you're not. You're solving people's problems. I train because it makes me happy. It makes my mind right. It keeps my heart happy, and it keeps my body strong. You know, and that's what I learned when I was in Boy Scouts, man. I'm an Eagle Scout, and they always say, keep yourself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight. And that's what jiu-jitsu does for me. And I try to instill that in others. In our kids program, that's what they're getting. Like they're learning how to protect themselves, but you're helping people. And if people leave your spot feeling worse than when they came in, no one's going to train with you. And that's when I realized it's about culture. It's not about developing. Sifu Robert Brown told me this. He said, we don't create world champions. We create champions in the world. And that's what I do. Like, I don't care if you come in and you're like, oh, I trained with this guy that did work. Like, dude, I don't care. You know, like it doesn't matter if you're not helping with the group. If you're an advanced belt and you're not willing to help the lady that's like just starting jiu-jitsu, or the guy that's like kind of overweight and he's kind of nervous, and you're like, oh, they'll figure it out. No, fuck you. Pardon my language, but I won't have it. I won't have it. Absolutely not. Like if you're a jerk off, I can't train with you, because it's not, I don't measure your worth of your skills. I measure your worth as a person of who you are. And then your skills are an added benefit. So that's literally why we're successful, because we just have awesome people. And it's not, everyone's like, oh, you created this big community, I guess, but at the same time, it's synergy. I gave my energy to the people, and the people appreciate and they support what I do, and it comes back to me, and then I give it back. So it's a constant cycle. And I think that's with anything. I can't remember the guy that said there's the oyster and the eagle. The oyster can open its shell and the kelp comes in and eats. It's at the bottom of the ocean. It's safe. It has security. But the eagle, it doesn't have security. It has to go out and find its own food, but it can build its home wherever it wants, and it can fly through hurricanes. So do you want to be an eagle or an oyster? I'm not into having a secure life. Give me my freedom. I don't have an oyster. I have an eagle. You know, that's why I stand for freedom. You know, I'm patriotic, but I also stand for the term of freedom. And the term freedom, again, is when you're not afraid. and you can live your life to the way you want. Well, that's the confidence that you get when you're training stuff like jiu-jitsu. Oh, you got a meth head at the bottom of your street beating on someone with a shovel, and you know how to physically stop the problem, because that's what you see in society. People are getting attacked and they hold up their phone and they're like, "Oh, put it." Dude, it's not real. Like that's not how society should operate. I don't believe in, I'm not a vigilante, but if you're hurting somebody who can't protect themselves, I don't have the duty, but I do have the right. So I don't think everybody needs to be like that, but the ones that are, they should be training. Like I train a lot of law enforcement, a lot of former military. And I think there's something to be said when you have a ton of guys that are wanting to do the right thing and they believe in freedom as well, they kind of all go to the same hub. So that's about the Freedom Academy.
It seems to me like you were always on a track to be this this version of yourself you are now. Like it seems like you're probably pretty dedicated and focused as a young man. But starting a jiu-jitsu school, however small you started it on, it's got to be scary. Why did you decide to do it?
What else am I going to do? You know, like that's, what do they say in Fight Club? We work jobs we hate to buy shit we don't need to impress people we don't like. I don't know if everyone knows this, but they're going to die one day. Like you don't live forever. And they say that before you die, your entire life flashes before your eyes. So I say, make it worth living. Like do whatever you want. My dad told me this. He says, work when you have to, quit when you can, do what you want, be your own man. And that's what I did. Like who says that the kid that wasn't confident, that couldn't pass a math class? My teachers told me I was retarded. They literally said that to my mom. That one teacher said, this kid is a waste of good air for other students. They put this thing on my desk where there was like a blocker forward and on the side so I couldn't see anything. And then I would just draw pictures on my work, and then they'd take that away and they do it so I couldn't. You couldn't break me. So like I said, like some people say, like my spirit animal is a lion. Well, I'm a cockroach. So when the lion's dead, I'll eat the bones. You know, so that's what I mean. Like, you know, roses, the soil has to be a pH. I'm a dandelion. Give me some concrete and I'll grow. And yeah, it was scary. It was really scary, especially with the just like the hate online. Like it's wild. Like I'll see someone that I know is very reputable and someone will say something so negative. And I don't believe in that, because when you dilute others, you end up diluting yourself. So when I was young, I chose who I wanted to be. And I saw the bigger picture, and then I just did things working towards that. I have little girls. I have a son that's 15. He needs to look up to see what a man needs to be. I have a daughter that's 6 and a daughter that's 2. They need to see, you need to be the person you needed when you were growing up. And you also need to be the person that you want people that you care about to look up to, depend on, and what you want them to be with. If I'm some shitbag that sleeps in and I don't do anything with my life and I'm negative and I complain, and I'm just like, well, I would if this, and I wasn't producing, that means that one day my daughter is going to end up with somebody like that. But if I'm a positive driving force, then I've done all I can do. And your kids will never do what you tell them to do. They'll do what they see you do. So that's, you know, you can smoke and tell your kids you better never smoke. If they're watching you do it, they'll emulate it. You know what I'm saying? So monkey see, monkey do. And yeah, like I never did like a self-help program or anything. Like I read some books, but I've always been like this since I was little. I've always believed in doing the right thing and sticking up for what's right. And I've been at that point where I couldn't protect myself. And I know that feeling. So now I can kind of connect with people on that level.
Now, as far as the business practices of opening your school, what were some of the hardships or maybe the pitfalls that you fell into that you'd like to warn people about, or maybe some of the positive things you did?
The things I'll tell you, the hard stuff is not every month is going to be good. Like it's not going to be easy, but if it's going to be worth it. You know, is it going to be easy? No, it's going to be worth it. So you're gonna miss. You can't get your time back. You can make a ton of money, you can lose it all, and you can make it all back. You can't get your time back, and I've learned that. And I learned it the hard way. You know, there was. I mean, I've put in the 18-hour days. I put in the 20-hour days. I've gone 2 hours of sleep and gone up and down to work the next day. I've done that for weeks on end. And some people say, "Oh, that's not healthy." Well, no, you know, that's why you're not where you want to be, because you're not willing to do it. But you can only do that for so long, because everyone says like, "Oh, I'm a grinder." Okay, well, let's use the grinder as an example, the tool. If I have a grinder in front of me and I take this knife and I hold it to the grinder and I never stop holding it to the grinder, what happens to the knife eventually? It disappears. Sometimes you have to be a builder as well. And you want to find people, what I've found out is find people that are in a position you want to be in, and then ask them to mentor you, ask them to go out to lunch. You know, some people won't give you the time of day because they are where they want to be and they don't want to help anybody else. I've had people help me with advice, and sometimes I've paid money for that advice. That being said, I applied it, and it's not always going to be easy. Like sometimes your own family won't believe in you, your own friends. So you can't be afraid. You're going to have to go it alone. That's the tough part, which isn't bad because you never want to rely on anybody too much, because even your own shadow will leave you in the darkness. So you got to be able to go through that and just know, is this going to be worth it at the end? And if the answer is yes, and if it goes, no, I don't think it will, then just quit right now, because you're never going to make it. The cool points are, I do whatever I want, man. Like I love my life. Like the Freedom Academy has given me freedom, but it's the people that support me, because without them, I don't have that freedom. You know, so I met you. I was out at Paulson's. I was gone for a month. Before that, I was up north doing a tactical training survival jiu-jitsu camp, and then I was at Paulson's, and then I came right back and I went right to Vegas. I didn't see my little girls. I don't see my wife. You know, so you're going to make sacrifices for these things, and then you'll also get like total freedom. So like the Atlanta, the coach development program, I hope to see you there. I'll be there at that one, and my goal is to bring my family. You know what I'm saying? So we can go down as a. So you'll get a lot of freedom if you put in the work and you write the systems the right way and you listen to the right people. You can have whatever you want. That's like Earl Nightingale said that. He's like, you have nothing to lose and you have a whole life to win. And don't be afraid to dream big, because you can have it. You just got to work for it. Anything's possible. That's what I've come to learn. And dude, like I never thought, like literally, I've had people, like adults, tell me you will end up dead or in jail. Straight up, like when I was in school. And I'm like, what do you want to do with your life? And I'm like, I want to teach martial arts. Like, pick something real. You got to do that on the side. I've had people straight up tell me, like, you'll never be able to do what I'm doing now full time. But I do, because you got to believe it. You can't, because what happens when you tell other people this stuff, like you got to keep to yourself. And that's why it's lonely. Eagles soar alone. You know, you run with turkeys or you soar by yourself as an eagle. Like you can't tell people stuff, because if I tell you something that you don't believe in, your computer, your brain will hear it. It'll go in your ears, go and go, we couldn't do that. Boom, boom. And it'll say, no, that's not possible. Well, it's not possible for you. I'm going to. And you can go, well, that's why I just don't tell anybody stuff. I mind my business. You know, they're energy vampires. They'll suck you dry. So the downfall is you're going to lose a little bit of time and you're going to put in a lot of work. The benefit, dude, it's great. You can do, like, it's the most, what else are you going to do? You know, like it's the coolest thing in the world. I got guys that make way more money than me, but they're jealous of what I do, you know, and it's not about me being anything other than that or rub someone's nose in it. I just like my life. I've envisioned this for myself when I was 12 years old, and I just hit my goal like at 33. So, and I don't, like, it's great. I'm really happy, you know, and I want other people to have it, and it's possible, and anybody can do it, especially me. Like I'm dyslexic, ADHD, if you couldn't tell, you know, I'm very hyper focused. I'm different. But I think that's why I think you got to be a little bit different to make it doing this stuff. You got to be a little crazy, maybe. I don't know.
Now, what would you tell to anyone looking to build confidence? Maybe they're thinking about trying a martial art. What would your advice be to that person?
So if you're looking to start out, find someone you connect with. If you don't feel that connection, like, yeah, I like to be here. This feels safe. I feel like I'm at home. I won't go there. There's of course like stepping out of your comfort zone, because even me, I went to Planet Fitness with my wife. It's purple and it says the no judgment zone. I've never been there. I was nervous. I've been in like 100 street fights. I've done MMA. I'm a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and I was nervous to go to a Planet Fitness because I've never done it. You know, we fear the unknown. So you can't, did I go? Yeah. Did I have a great workout? It was awesome. You know, they had pizza. That being said, like just do it. Find a place you want to go and take action. Don't think, oh, I'll start in the new year. That's the worst thing you can do, because again, you can't get your time back. And if there's something you want, you got to go out and get it. And it's that bond, like how you and me, we just like clicked. I'm like, I like this guy, and we became buds. That's what it is. Like you find people that you want to be around, and you just start going. Like you just get your feet wet, you know, and take a beginner class, take a seminar, talk to people, just take action. You can't think about it. And man, just find something you can passionately believe in. If it's Taekwondo, go do it. If it's Zumba, if it's Kali, if it's anything, it could be fencing, it could be it could be anything. Like one of my buddies really loves ninjutsu, like the ninja, like he loves that stuff. And so one of the guys I know that does jujitsu was making fun of him. Like, dude, no, like if that's what he wants to go do, let him go do it. If someone likes what someone's putting out and they like what it is, have fun with it. And dude, nobody cares. Like when you go there and you're like, oh, I'm out of shape, I'm fat, I'm not confident. Like, dude, everyone there is so focused on themselves learning it, they're not even looking at you. Like, you're not that special.
Any parting words of wisdom? What would you like to impart? Anyway, listen to this video just to help them have a better, happier life.
Mind, body, spirit. Life is too short, and we got to make the most of it. So find something that you love. And if you feel like you're so depressed and you have such bad anxiety that like you can't find it, and you're thinking you can't even think forward because it's just taking you out, you need to look back to when life was good and go like, man, that's when I felt the best. I was eating this, I was listening to this, I was going here, I was around this person. And you go, well, I've never been happy. Well, then it's time to find it. Because that's one thing I've realized is happiness is a choice and it comes from within. And everything that you're looking for out there, if it's in a relationship, if it's in martial arts, no matter what it is you're seeking, you already have it. It was with you the whole time. And Musashi was the one that said that. And the Stoics said that whenever something's like taking you apart or like festering you, you have to just look within and know that you can find that strength in yourself and that all the answers are up here. And if you can remember that and be confident in yourself, man, like you can do anything. Like I said, I went from some backwoods, like loser that I was not confident and I was down, and just see the floodgates of abundance that have been poured on me from training. I give it all the thanks in the world. It's given me every door that's ever been open to me was because I was training. Like, so I said, like, it's not like jujitsu. It could have been catch wrestling. It could have been taekwondo. I needed something. I'm very thankful it was jujitsu. And if you start with just that one thing and I say martial arts, if someone wants to get confident in their life and change it, get into a martial arts class with guys like you, guys like me that are going to build you. And man, you can do anything. That's what I would recommend. And don't eat shitty food.
Hold up, let me cancel my McDonald's Grubhub order real quick.
That's fine.
But no, man, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you being on the show. And where can people connect with you at?
So I'm on Instagram, and I'm about to start blowing up on my TikTok. So keep an eye on that. So if you just go, just type in Craig Funk, and then I believe the tag is Loud Warrior Garden. So that's if you want to look me up on Instagram, that's where I do most of my personal posting. You can hit me on Facebook. But if you go to the Freedom Academy, I'm going to be having a lot of stuff on my website. So if you go to the, freedomfma.com, all my updates are on there. We got some upcoming seminars, and I got an online academy I'm building right now, and which is going to have the eating, the workouts, the martial arts, the firearms, literally everything that I do, the dog training, I mean, down to a T, self-sufficiency living. So that's what I got.
And what city is your academy in? What town?
Brighton, Michigan.
Brighton, Michigan. So if you're in the Brighton, Michigan area and you're looking to train a martial art, get more confident, get in shape, Craig Funk's the man. I want to thank you for being on the show, Craig, man. And next time we're at a CSW coaches camp, let's hang out, man.
Dude, I would love to, man. I really appreciate your time, and man, I really like talking to you. I really, you sparked some really good memories, and now I'm inspired. So this is great. I love it.
And that's it for today's episode of FURYCAST. I want to give one more shout out to Mr. Craig Funk for coming on the show and dropping some truly inspirational bombs on us. If you're in the Brighton, Michigan area, make sure you stop by his school, Freedom Academy. You can also check out all the programs and classes that he offers online. The links are in the description. Make sure you show him some love. Also show your boy Derrick Fury some love by signing up today for the mailing list for my new graphic novel, The Gentleman's Guild. That's right, illustration by the world famous E. by Canales. You don't want to miss it. The link to that is also in the description. Sign up today. For real though, sign up. What you doing? Just click the link, sign up. And don't forget to watch Lion Killer, my debut feature film. That's right, I made a movie. It's called Lion Killer. It stars Regina Ting Chen, who's currently on season 4 of Stranger Things. You can watch it at Amazon Prime, Tubi TV, Freevee, the Roku channel, or you can pop on over to the YouTube channel called V Movies. And thanks for watching this episode of FURYCAST. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and yes, smash the bell for notifications. That's it for this episode of FURYCAST. Till next week. Peace.